invites us to ponder the profound idea of rebirth and renewal and to recognize that in our lives. In Unity, we put tremendous emphasis on the idea of not just talking about our spiritual practice, but to actually dive into and participate in our spiritual practice. This idea of Advent is a period of hope for light in the darkness. It is about guiding our deeper understanding for that spirit within us. And we begin this journey today with the invitation to open our hearts and to open our minds and to think about this idea of the journey of Advent in new and courageous ways, new and different ways. For we have all been on this journey of Advent before. How can we embrace this year's Advent with new energy and revived enthusiasm? Advent is the beginning of the church calendar for those that are following the Western Christian tradition. I personally did not grow up in a church that really celebrated Advent. We celebrated Christmas, but we didn't necessarily do Advent. And so I want to talk a little bit about what Advent means. It always begins on the Sunday closest to November 30th. And it ends on Christmas Eve. The word Advent means coming or arrival, and it is traditionally focused the entire season celebrating the anticipation of the birth of Jesus. In Unity, we use that to celebrate the idea of the birth of the Christ in us, that birth of the realization of the Christ anew. Spiritually, Advent symbolizes our journey, your individual journey, and the journey that you take together as a spiritual center. It's a time for us to affirm that Jesus is our way shower, a divine and holy inspiration, and how can we use the idea of the narrative of his birth story to ignite within us new anticipation? And what are we willing to birth anew that we may not have birthed before? So it's a time of reflection and of revelation and to go deeper. It is truly about going deeper and celebrating our oneness with the Christ within and our oneness with each other. The tradition of Advent candles is a cherished part of the Advent season, and it symbolizes the light of God that came into the world through the person of Jesus. There's an Advent wreath. You may have Advent wreaths and candles in your own home. The wreath itself is circular, and that represents the continuation of life, of eternal life. That is the circular meaning of the Advent wreath. And then it has within it 4 candles. And each candle represents something different and unique. The first candle, known as the prophet's candle, symbolizes hope and the anticipation of new birth. In traditional Christianity, it specifically symbolizes the coming of Jesus' first advent, his first arrival on earth. The second candle is known as the Bethlehem candle, and it represents peace. And it's about the preparations that are made for the coming of the birth. The third candle is the angel's candle, and it signifies love and the message that the angels brought: peace on earth, goodwill to men, or goodwill to all humankind. And the fourth candle, which is often pink, symbolizes the joy of the announcement of Jesus' birth. And then in the center, there is usually a white candle, which is known as the Christ candle, and this is lit either at your Christmas Eve candlelight service or at your Christmas Day service to symbolize the actual birth into the world of this new light that came in the human Jesus, in the person of Jesus. Today, the lighting of Advent candles has transcended all of its Christian origins. It's still done in many Christian traditions, but it is also brought into people's homes. And it is brought there to remind us to slow down, to take a breath, to reflect on being the light in the perception of darkness in our world, and to serve others and not just bear our light alone, but to share that light with others. Today, Jan will light the first candle of Advent, the candle of hope. And y'all just hold the sacred space in your heart of the coming of light. Thank you, Jan. And every Sunday hereafter, another candle will be lit, bringing the symbolization of whatever that week represents. In the Gospel of Luke, the angel Gabriel came to Mary. So I want you to imagine the scene, and I would love for you to imagine that you are Mary. The angel came to Mary as a young woman, a young maiden. She had been betrothed to Joseph, but they were not yet married. And this angel tells Mary, "Hail, O favored one, the Lord is with you." So imagine in your mind what it would be like for a celestial being, something unearthly, to come to you and call your name and say to you, "O favored one, the Lord is with you." And then the angel said, "Do not be afraid, Mary." And the angel goes on to tell Mary that she will conceive and bear a son who will be called the Son of the Most High. And the really significant part of the angel's message was this: for nothing is impossible with God. This is the true message of hope. For nothing is impossible with God. The angel Gabriel is also known as the messenger of divine grace and hope. This message plays a pivotal part in the Advent narrative, in the Christmas season narrative. Gabriel is bridging the gap between the divine that we cannot see, that we cannot explain, and humanity, the world that we know on earth. He comes and visits Mary, and this marks the moment of celestial intervention and divine promise. Imagine how you would feel if an angel visited you and gave you this message. In this moment, right now, I want you to claim this message for yourself. That you are favored, that you are not alone, that God is with you. Do not be afraid of whatever might be happening in your life, and know that with God, nothing is impossible. Know that you are divine and holy. You are divine and holy, beautiful child of God. And know that this presence is the very breath of you. It is the holiness of God that breathes you. Isn't that a beautiful idea? I know that many of us have often felt like we were alone and have often felt like that maybe our lives were, just a sack of whatever. But that's not the truth. That's not the truth of who we are. And isn't it a beautiful message when we can remember that we are important, we're special, we matter, we are here on purpose. We're here on purpose. The angel Gabriel gave Mary the gift of hope in that message. He gave her something to anticipate, something to look forward to, something perhaps, I'm sure, was scary. I'm sure that she had trepidation. I know I certainly would. And at the same time, imagine the enthusiasm, the excitement, the growing idea of something fabulous was about to happen, even though she didn't know what that was. Do you feel the power of hope alive in your life today? Do you have hope that this holiday season is going to be something beautiful and wonderful for you? It may not look like other people's. It may, we've got to quit this competition stuff. We've got to quit this comparing. And we've got to stop expecting our families to look like they walked out of a Hallmark movie, please. You are my family. You are a part of my family. The deep friendships that we have garnered over the years is so important and special. And being here with you during this season to kick off this season brings me so much joy. Your hope is found in the comforting moments of connection with Spirit in your meditation time. In the moments that you connect with others over a cup of coffee or a sandwich. Your hope is found when you give thanks for all the ways that you are blessed, that you are still here, a part of this spiritual community, that this spiritual community is alive and well. Your hope is found when you share the good that you've been given with your time and your talent and your treasure. Mary's response to Gabriel reflects the essence of Advent hope because she was willing to embrace the challenge that was given to her. She was willing to say yes. Dawn, we don't have any idea if other maidens might have been asked before Mary was asked. Have you ever thought about that? But Mary said yes. Mary accepted the call. Mary was willing to bear the gift of hope. Gabriel's visit to Mary invites us to see moments of divine grace and hope in our own lives. It encourages us to be the bearers of hope in a world that is yearning for light and love. When Jesus came into the world over 2,000 years ago, there was much darkness in the world. There was much evil, much hatred, much hostility. And he came bearing light. He came to be our example, to allow the light within us to shine in the world. So this lighting of the Advent candle today is more than just a candle that's going to burn on the altar through this service. It's the lighting of the spark of hope in you so that you can shine your light in the world. Let's talk about how we can live in hope and pass it along. In an article that was written in Psychology Today by Dr. Robert Healy, he wrote about one of his patients who had come to him for therapy after the patient had decided not to commit suicide. And this particular patient had a very interesting story. A very interesting thing had happened to him that caused him to reverse his decision to end his life. This man had decided that today was the day, and he was driving to this big bridge in his hometown where he anticipated throwing himself over this bridge. And on his way to do his deed, he had to pause at a red light, a stoplight. And as he's sitting there waiting for the light to change, he looks through his windshield, and there is an elderly woman on the sidewalk. And that elderly woman looks directly at the man, looks him in the eye, and smiles. And the man found himself smiling back. The light changes. He continues on his way toward the bridge. And in that short expanse of time, he reflects on that old lady's smile. No offense to all of us who are in that category. He reflects on her smile and that he responded to it. And it occurs to him that maybe life is not as hopeless as he believed it was. Could there be some reason to not fling myself over this bridge? And instead of stopping his car and going forward with his anticipated endeavor, he returned to his home and made a call for help. Notice that the therapist wrote this article in a national magazine. And not only did the therapist know about this story and the man know about this story, the lady never knew about this story unless she's a reader of Psychology Today. But now you and I know about this story. And we may tell others about this story. This is how hope ripples out. Do you think that after hearing this story today that you may treat people differently when you meet them on the street or see them at a traffic light? If this man passed you this morning on your way here, would you have noticed him? Would you have smiled? Would you have given the passerby the gift of hope? Let's imagine that this man was able to recover from his depression, and let's imagine that he either had a family or created a family. We don't know if one of his children or his grandchildren or a great-grandchild might have gone on and done something incredible that would have positively affected all of humanity. One life touches another life, and people are changed. One life touches another life, and the world is changed. I want to share with you the law of 250. The average person has contact with 250 people in a week. Think about that. And every one of those contacts has the possibility of being a life-changing touch. The people that you directly touch, those are the first level. But every one of those people has another circle of influence of 50 people. A mathematics professor challenged this idea of 250 contacts. When he read this article, he said, there's no way that I make 250 contacts in a week. So he took on his own challenge, and he put a counter in his pocket, and for the next week, he counted every time that he had contact with another person. He was a professor. He only counted his students once, and he only counted the people that he saw multiple times a week one time. He wanted an accurate count of how many people did he contact in a week. And at the end of the week, his total was 518. That's a normal week for him. How many contacts do you have in a week? By phone or Zoom or in person or email these days, right? Some of you may have seen the movie 6 Degrees of Separation. It's based on the concept that all of us are only separated by 6 or less degrees from other people, all other people around the planet. Stanley Milgram did a study called The Small World, and he studied networking. He studied the networks of family and friends and business associates. And in an experiment, Milgram wanted to see if he could get a letter passed from a randomly selected person in Nebraska to a randomly selected person in Boston. The letter could not be mailed. It could only be passed person to person. And he did it multiple times to different randomly selected people. And at the end of his study, it was an average of 5.5 degrees of separation from the person that initially passed the letter to it getting to its recipient, wherever that was. Makes me want to try to do that, doesn't it? So some of you that are traveling this holiday season, I'll be slipping you a letter. Each of you has 50 friends, at least. And each of those friends have 50 friends. So that means of the original group, you alone have 2,500 contacts. Those contacts have 50 friends, and that means that you now have access to 125,000 contacts. At level 4, each of those people have 50 friends. So now your reach through 4 levels of circles of influence is 6 million people. And by the time you get to level 6, that ripple effect has circled the planet. So Gabriel said to Mary, "Hail, O favored one, the Lord is with you." Imagine that message being rippled out through all those circles of influence. Let's pause for some time of meditation and reflection.